Hello?
Yeah, there we go.
That sounds better.
I had my Bluetooth headphones connected. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Do you know what? I could hear you speaking, and I was like, oh, it must be playing through the computer. So I took my headphones, like the headphones I'm wearing, through my mic out, and it sounded really distant still. And I thought, what in the world is happening? And then I realized,
How are we today?
I would say that we are very well. How are you?
Pretty good. Went up to Castlemaine last night. Or, well, the night before. Spent a
Oh,
couple of
okay.
nights there.
How is it in the main?
Bitterly cold.
Bitterly cold. Oh dear.
Well, it's cold in Melbourne, but it's bitterly cold there.
Oh dear.
As I'm sure you can remember.
Yeah, look, I do remember it being cold in Castlemaine. It's nothing new there.
It was so foggy, too, on Friday night.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, I don't remember it usually getting that foggy. It's always foggy towards Dalesford, because
Yeah.
Dalesford, I think, is in a bit of a valley.
What have you gotten up to today?
Well, today I actually spent the morning with Samantha, and then in the afternoon I went to work.
You went to work on a Sunday?
I went to work on a Sunday.
But that's the Lord's Day.
I know. What will the Lord think of us? Well, do you know what my pathetic clap has got me thinking about?
No? What's that?
Pathetic high fives.
Oh, yeah.
You know when you try and high five somebody and either your hands miss or they don't hit at the right kind of point, and you just end up getting a really pathetic. It's not really a slap. It's more just kind of a plop, a wet plop sound.
Yeah. I have to say that I'm not terribly good at giving high fives. I know you've got to aim for the elbow, but I always forget until it's sort of already happened.
Well, you know what it is. You've got to be strong in the shoulder. I think that's really where a good high five comes from. So, like a good punch, a good punch kind of starts at your legs, but a good high five starts at your shoulder. And don't get afraid to put a bit of body rotation into it and really move your body into the high five. I think if your hand isn't stinging after you've high fived someone, then you're not doing it right.
I'm not sure about that, but potentially.
Well, I don't know. I guess it depends where you're coming from, but yeah, certainly in my opinion, it's gotta hurt. Sort of like a good massage, actually. I think if you get a good massage, it should hurt. Not too much, you shouldn't be in debilitating pain, but should get into the muscles. Although I suppose everyone has their own opinion on that. Perhaps some people don't like to be injured by their high fives and their massages, but
Maybe it depends
I
on how
feel
frequently you're giving them out. If you're high fiving everything, then obviously you might want to turn it down a bit. But if it's only for the super special occasion, it might be more applicable
okay.
to go hard.
Okay, I see where you're coming from there, but my experience is, and I'll tell you where this is coming from, but I think my experience is that the more you do something, the tougher you'll get. So, you can high five people hard a lot of the time, and after a while, you won't kind of notice it. And where this is coming from is I remember when I was snowboarding a lot in Canada, and not being a very good snowboarder, I used to fall over all the time, usually onto my butt. And certainly the first several times I did it, I would come home with a sore butt because I'd just fallen over so much. But after a while, we just stopped noticing it. You can fall over quite a lot, and it doesn't hurt. You don't hurt afterwards because your butt's toughened up. And I think you'd find that with frequent high force high fives, you get the same thing, and you'd stop noticing the pain.
I'm going to go try skiing in a couple of weeks.
Oh, cool. Which mountain are you going to?
Just Buller.
Buller. Okay. That's cool. You've been, I think, once. Am I correct in that?
I've been snowboarding. I've been to the snow a
Mm.
couple of times.
Oh, okay.
Both of which I didn't super enjoy, I have to say.
Yeah, I do remember you going to the snow camp that we went to together, and yeah, I don't remember you loving that particular experience.
No.
Why the move? Why the shift to skiing?
I've heard skiing is a little bit easier, potentially. Less
Okay.
prone to falling over. I don't know if that's true, because I have only experience of snowboarding. But if that's true, then maybe it's more for me.
Okay. All right.
Have you done both? Or only snowboarding?
Um, Now I've skied. Yes, I've skied. Yeah, I've skied, but it was once, and it was ages ago. Um, and okay, it was interesting to try. But I feel like, with snowboarding, I can now. Well, I mean, I used to be able to. I'm not really sure where I'm at now, but I used to be able to go on the advanced mountains. I'd be able to do, pretty cool trails. I'm not saying I did them well, but I was able to do them. And yeah, go on the more advanced stuff. But if I did skiing, I'd just be right back to where I started. So I think that it was fun to try, but I wouldn't actually take it up because I enjoy snowboarding. I don't really see the point in switching.
Okay. Have you been lately?
No, I was actually thinking about going this year, but it's expensive.
Yeah, it is.
And the snow in Australia, I mean, it's fine if you're a beginner, but the more advanced you get, the worse it is because, if you go, I think the term is off-piste, which means off-trail. The snow gets a lot worse off-trail because on the trails they blow snow onto them in Australia because not a lot of snow falls on the mountains, but
Yeah.
off the trails it just gets really icy because it tends to the thing that makes the snow icy is the snow will fall and then during the day it'll actually warm up enough to melt the top layer of snow, and then during the night it'll cool down and it'll freeze, so you get a frozen layer on top of the snow, which isn't good for well, I mean, it's not good for skiing or snowboarding actually. So yeah, but you don't get that obviously in the colder places where it just doesn't actually get warm enough to melt that snow. So I mean, it might not snow for a few days, but you'll still have good snow because it hasn't actually melted and frozen and turned into that icy cap that you get.
Okay. It's interesting.
Yeah, it is. Like when I was in Canada, it was beautiful snow all the time because it was just snow and snow and snow. And, most days you'd go up there and it would have snowed during the night and you'd have fresh snow to snowboard on. It was amazing.
Yep.
But, yeah, you're very unlikely to get that kind of thing in Australia. But it's fine for beginners because, I mean, you wouldn't really notice the difference.
You were in Canada for a few months there, weren't you?
I think it was about 6 or 7 months in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool, actually. For snowboarding, the best. But I made $10 an hour when I was there, which I then had to pay accommodation and food and basically everything else out of. So, yeah, it was a pretty poor time in my life.
But snow rich.
But snow rich, yes, that's true. I was rich in snow, but poor in everything else.
How's your new phone going?
It's going very well. It's going very well. I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased with it, David, and I do thank you for the recommendation.
Would you say it's better or worse than the Nexus 5X?
Look, it's probably better. I know that you say specs wise it's better. Like for my purposes though, it's pretty much the same.
How are you finding the larger size?
Look, I don't actually really notice it. I mean, I do know it has a larger size. I'm aware of that, but yeah, it's not really something that vexes me a great deal, I think.
I suppose you've got big hands, so it doesn't really matter.
Well, that's true, yeah. I do have big hands. I wouldn't say they're giant hands. Quite large.
How is your focus on upper body strength working out?
My winter of training only upper body. Look, I've been really bad recently, actually. I think I went to the gym once last week and I didn't go to karate training at all. And the week before I went to karate training once and I think the gym once. So, how's it working out? Generally speaking, with my training, it's going fine because in my training, all I've been doing is upper body. But my actual training itself is going really badly. And the reason has just been that I've been a bit sick.
Yeah.
And I've also been working a lot. So, it's all prevented it happening, which is unfortunate, but I suppose just the way it goes sometimes. What can you really do about these things, David? Oh, what am I looking at here?
Well, following on from our discussion last week about the lack of durable devices, this is a device Samsung are making specifically with durability in mind. This is the Samsung Galaxy S7 Active, and it's pretty much the internals of their standard S7, their flagship from last year,
Mm-hmm.
packed into a super resilient shell.
Okay.
I think it meets certain military criteria for durability.
It looks durable on the back and the sides, but I'm still a bit worried about the front.
I think it's got like a different material on the front. Like it's more scratch prone but less crack prone.
Okay, cool. But would I assume be priced around their
Yeah,
normal
flagship
products?
prices, yeah.
Oh,
Still.
okay.
So it'd probably be $600-700.
That's like 2 or 3 of my phones, David.
That's right. But maybe it
What's
would
it?
last longer.
Well, that's it. You could almost justify it with the way I go through phones.
Do you have a like Goodreads profile?
I do indeed. Yes. Oh, you know what, David? We're always looking for things to link to people. For me, I could just link them my Goodreads.
That's true.
Do you know? I'm going to talk a little bit about books, if that's all right.
Sure.
Now that we're on the subject, one of my childhood fears actually was my favorite authors dying before they could finish their respective series, which I know is horrible. But people like David Eddings, who I think was actually dead by the time I started reading him, but I didn't realize that until I got into some of his series, and I thought, wow, this guy's great. This guy's great. I wonder if he's going to release any more. Looked him up, and bam, he was deceased. And there was another author, Robert Jordan. I think Robert Jordan's a pen name, but he wrote this series called The Wheel of Time. He died at, I think, book 11.
Out of how many?
You see, there were only ever supposed to be 12 books. He died.
No.
He
One
died
away.
at book 11, and he left a whole bunch of notes. And his wife, I think, used to help him with his writing. So she was kind of across the story, but I don't think she's a writer or something like that. And she didn't want to finish the series, but she wanted the series finished, and I think he did as well. So his wife actually organised to have another writer, this guy called Brandon Sanderson, finish his series. And I was pretty excited for it. I actually haven't read any of Brandon Sanderson's work apart from the end of the series that he wrote, the end of the Wheel of Time series. He actually ended up making the series into 3 books, which he did explain. He said, "Look, I know it was only ever supposed to be 1 book. This guy Robert Jordan left me all these notes, and I don't know how to make it into 1 book, so I'm just gonna make it into 3." And I'd never heard of Brandon Sanderson before, and I don't know how well known he was before that. But ever since he wrote the last 3 books of the Wheel of Time series, his books are everywhere now, it seems to me.
Okay.
And I know he'd written a bit before that, but I don't really think that he kind of achieved much fame before he kind of embarked on that journey. And I respect what he did, and I think it's good that the series was finished. For me, the writing was never the same, though.
Yeah, well, of course.
I mean, authors they create certain characters and they write with a certain voice, and I think he did the right thing, because what he said was, I'm not going to try and write it in the way that Robert Jordan would have written it, because I don't feel that I can do that. I don't feel that anybody could have done that. So I'm just going to write it with my voice, and I'm going to tell the story, and just try and do him honor, which was good, but also it was very sad for me on a very selfish level, honestly, David, because I wanted the end of that series written by Robert Jordan.
So close.
Yeah,
They
right.
should just wrapped it up in 11 and be done with it.
Well, maybe, yeah. I'm not going to say no.
12 is a long series, isn't it? I know there's some long ones out there, but
Yes and no. I think you get it more with fantasy than you get with anything else. I'm going to do a brief review of the book Snakewood by the author Adrian Selby. Now, this is Adrian's first work, or published work, I believe. And one of the things that struck me about this book is I read it, and I was actually really caught up in it. And I read it from, cover to cover, probably in about a day or so. And it was one of those books that just really grabbed me. And, admittedly, it is very much in my style. I kind of like the dark fantasy type books. But something that really surprised me was I thought it was, at least a 4-star book. I mean, it wasn't amazing, but it was very good, especially for an author's first work.
Mm.
And when I went into Goodreads, I think it's got about a 3-star rating. And for me, that just struck me as really strange because, I mean, while I'm not always spot on with these things, I usually tend to think I have a fairly good idea of decent writing. I'm not going to be able to tell amazing writing from good writing or the intricacies of what makes good writing good, but I can tell good writing, I like to think. And this book, Snakewood, struck me as, well, it wasn't amazing, it was good, and the story was really gripping, but obviously just didn't strike a lot of people's fancy. I usually tend to think that good books get about a 4-star rating, but this one got a 3-star rating.
But surely 3 out of 5 stars is good.
Look, it's
4 out of 5 is above average. And then 5 is amazing.
It's decent. No. Look, I would... Yeah, okay. No, alright. It's decent. Not many people seem to love it, though.
No.
It was a pretty grim book in a lot of ways, though. It was pretty sad some of the times. So maybe that was part of it.
People do generally like more uplifting material.
Oh, yes and no. I mean, I think if it's done right, people don't mind a bit of misery, but perhaps he just didn't do misery in the right way.
Have you read more of his work, or hasn't written anything else yet?
I don't believe he's written anything else. That was a standalone book. As far I'm sure he could write something else on it, but that was a standalone story. I always wonder. It seems to me that very broadly speaking. In fact, I'm not even going to speak broadly. I'm not even going to do it. Some other feedback I got is that I tend to talk about topics and specify that I'm only offering my opinion on them, and then give a very solid opinion that I make seem like an absolute certainty. So
that's all right. I think it comes without saying that it's your opinion.
Yeah. I think it's funny to say that it comes without, or it goes without saying that something's someone's opinion, but when someone presents that opinion as a fact, then it doesn't really go without saying, does it?
Well, I suppose it depends what you're talking about, I guess. But have you ever said anything that's presented as fact that's factually wrong? Because if not, then it doesn't really matter, right?
No, okay. All right, I'll give you that one. Okay.
Like before, if you had said it was a Spanish author and he's not, then okay, maybe. But your opinion on his book and how you thought it was better than it's being rated, that's all fine.
Yeah, okay.
It's all opinion.
I suppose it is all opinion. You're right about that. Do you know who this author, Adrian Selby, does remind me of, though? Another author I think I've talked about a little bit, Mark Lawrence.
Okay. It doesn't ring a bell, but possibly.
Look, you may not have heard of him. He wrote this series starting with a book called the Prince of Thorns. And then the next book is called The King of Thorns, and then the third book is called The Emperor of Thorns.
I've heard of the Prince of Thorns.
I think it's quite well known because it was released at a time that everyone was going crazy for the George Martin stuff. Right at the time that the TV series kind of came out.
Yeah,
and he writes in the same genre, I guess. So it's dark fantasy. I should say as well, the series I'm talking about by Mark Lawrence is called The Broken Empire. So Prince of Thorns is the first book in The Broken Empire. I will say, I always tend to find that, well, I don't always find this, but with a lot of books, I think the first book's really good, and then the series will kind of fade off towards the end. I felt that the Prince of Thorns was quite good, but the King of Thorns and the Emperor of Thorns kind of went downhill a fair bit, because you create this character in your first book, and it's this really engaging character. You have this really cool story, but then it seems that everything after that just kind of falls by the wayside, and you're just trying to flog this character who you've kind of already explored in a lot of ways. So I think that's a little bit what happened to his series. I still think it's quite a good series and worth the read. Not as good as some. Let's just put it that way.
I guess that initial idea is usually the best, especially if it takes off and you develop into a series.
Well, yeah, that's it.
But you also get the opportunity to flesh it out more, and I guess the quality of writing should go up, right? Especially if they're newish authors.
Well, yeah, okay. No, I get that, yeah. I certainly think that with Harry Potter, though, I mean, J.K. Rowling obviously wasn't a newish author in the fact that I believe that she'd been writing a fair bit before she wrote Harry Potter, but I think Harry Potter was one of her first published works. I think. I shouldn't say anything about that, actually, because I don't know for sure. But just an interesting note. So, Prince of Thorns, as you said, you've heard of, and I think a lot of people have heard of it. And if you look at the Goodreads ratings, Prince of Thorns, which is the first book, and in my opinion it was the best book, has an average rating of 3.87 stars out of 5. So it's not at the 4, which I would expect it to be at. But the number of ratings for it are 61,700.
Yeah.
So what that means is probably a lot of people have read this first book in the series. But you look at the second book in the series, which is averaged at 4.2 out of 5 stars, and it has 38,000 ratings. So obviously
Still
what's happened... Still a lot of rating. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think he has become quite a popular author. But what a lot of people have done have read the first book, didn't like it, rated it low, not bothered with the second or third. The people that liked the series have rated the second and third books.
Yeah, it's a self-selecting audience, which makes sense.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it does make sense. You're right about that. But all the rest of his books are above 4 stars in ratings. And I've got to say, I like his books. They're good.
Doing well then.
Yeah, and also as well, I actually rated one of his books, and I don't usually leave comments just because I'm a bit too lazy. But I left a comment saying, really good book, loved it. And he liked my rating. Huh. So he actually went on to his Goodreads and liked my rating.
Wow.
I would imagine it was probably before, he kind of shot to the point where he is, where, he is very popular now. And I know that for a lot of authors, Goodreads is their social media. So if you do well on Goodreads, that's going to make sure you do well everywhere else, because Goodreads is where I get my book recommendations.
Okay.
And if I see a book is rated 4 stars, I'll definitely jump on it.
Yeah, I didn't know it was so influential.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So what is it exactly? Just a way for you to review and rate different books that you've read? Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Is
there any other component to it? Like that from the author's perspective?
There might be. I mean, obviously, if you have a well-rated book, it's gonna do well for you, because people are going to be able to see it.
I just mean in terms of, you said it was kind of their social media, but can they actually interact with their fans, I guess, in any way?
Well, they can, yeah. So they get an author's page, so it shows details about them. It links to their Twitter, to their website. It looks like I think they can post articles on this kind of page as well.
Okay. Can you have a conversation with them if you said this guy liked your post? Could they have written a comment in reply to your comment and sort of have a thread going, or no?
Interesting question, David. Again, I'm not actually too sure. I would imagine so. It seems likely that I could reply to his comment, but I didn't, because nobody wants to be that guy.
No.
He liked my review 3 years ago. and my review was literally, great book, part of a fast-paced trilogy.
Succinct.
Wow. Oh, yeah. And I think that's probably one of the only reviews I've ever done on Goodreads.
And you got a like from the author. You should do more. You're clearly a top-ranking reviewer.
Right? Right? A lot of people go to a lot of effort to write reviews on books. I was looking at the reviews for some of my favourite books, and people really go into detail about why they do like them and why they don't.
Sort of a whole list of pros and cons.
Yeah, which is, you know, their prerogative, but I'm not... I don't have time for that. Well, I mean, I do have time for that. I think I've just shared a photo with you, and I'm going to describe this photo to you, if you want to have a look at it.
I have a notification. Would that be it? Oh, yes, it is. Alex shared a photo with me. It's a dog.
Yeah, so this was a dog that I met on Friday night, which was the coolest dog in the world, called Echo, and it was a combination of a German Shepherd and a Husky.
Okay.
And it's inspired me, David. This is the type of dog I want.
What made it so cool?
Oh, it just had a lovely personality. And it was great to pat. And yeah, just everything you need in a dog.
Could do tricks.
It just struck me as the type of dog, you know, the type of dog that you could take home to your family. It is a nice looking dog.
It is big though. I don't know how you're going to look after one of those in Sydney.
Well, I mean, yeah, it couldn't be something that I could get now, obviously, but maybe sometime in the future when I'm filthy stinking rich from selling my body on street corners. I don't know why that would make me rich.
It's not the direction that I thought you were going to go in.
No, I don't think anyone thought I was going to go in that direction.
It does look very happy with your attentions.
Oh, he was super happy. Yeah. Anyway, I'm really inspired because I think he's a very good looking dog as well. Handsome dog.
Yes.
And I told him he was handsome multiple times. And I hope he appreciates just how handsome he is.
I'm sure he didn't understand a word of it, but understood the sentiment.
Well, hopefully, David. Hopefully. And if he didn't, well, he would have understood the sentiment. I don't think there's any doubt about that. How could he not? Being such a handsome dog.
So you just ran into him on the street there, did you?
Oh yeah. Yeah, he was sitting eating some curry.
Right.
Well, I don't know how much of the curry he was eating, but his owner was certainly eating curry.
At one of the restaurants that he frequents.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how frequent he is there. I should have asked him if he'll be back.
So you don't know the owner at all?
Didn't know the owner. Just made friends with his dog. Which he appreciated, you know. I think a lot of dog people are like that. They appreciate their dogs getting attention.
Having never been an animal person, I don't really know, but I feel like it would be so annoying that every second person comes up to you and goes, "Oh, you're such a good boy," and you're just trying to walk and go about your business.
You see, you think that, but I think that most people actually love it. I mean, mate, obviously there's probably some people that hate it and just think, wow, leave me alone.
I mean, maybe it doesn't happen that frequently for most people, but I don't know, there was this huge dog that I saw the other day on the street, and like every second person stopped to have a chat about it. You couldn't get any work done taking that thing for a walk.
Okay, I can see where you're coming from there. And yes, perhaps that is the case, but I don't know. This guy was perfectly fine with it. Like, he took those photos for me.
Yes, well, in that case. Did you see Atari is going to bring out a new game console?
I didn't, no.
The Ataribox.
Bit of a blast from the past.
Yeah. No one actually knows anything about it at this point, though, so it's all just pure speculation.
Oh, really?
If you go to this site, you can see a video, but the video really doesn't show anything.
So, have Atari done anything recently? I mean, I would have thought they're not even still a company.
Well, they still own the rights to a whole bunch of games and a whole lot of IP. So that's mostly where their money comes from.
Okay.
Mostly just licensing it out to other people so they can make clones of games or just new versions of games with existing characters. They're really holding on by a thread. Well, in terms of relevancy, I think they're probably solvent enough. But they're not a huge company anymore.
No. It's funny how these companies that were such a big part of, well, certainly a slice of history, in this case, gaming history.
Yeah.
Can, just basically disappear. What would your opinion of it be? Because I wouldn't imagine that it would be a high-tech console. At least in my mind, I guess.
The only small thing they've said is it's going to be based on PC technology, but really that's true of every console now, so it doesn't really mean a lot. Some people were speculating that it might be like the NES Classic and it will just run old Atari games, but this video says years in the making, and so something like that wouldn't take years to make. So it's really confusing what this actually is.
Well, perhaps they're suggesting, though, like they haven't released anything for years, and now they're releasing something.
Well, maybe. But then also from the video, even though it doesn't show much, it looks like a large device. And
which they wouldn't need for...
Well, it wouldn't need to be. I suppose they could do it just for nostalgia reasons, because the old ones, I guess, were fairly large. But it doesn't really make sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then if they're going to release a pure console to compete with the Xbox and the PlayStation, I don't think they're going to have much success. But at the same time, Atari is a brand that, game loyalists know and appreciate from the bygone era. So maybe if they hit the right price point and they marketed it super well, they might gain some traction. Just really interested to see what this actually is.
But from what you were kind of saying, like a lot of what the success of the new consoles is based on is the exclusive titles that they'll get.
Yeah, which they could have some exclusives because they still have the IP, but I don't know how good those games are going to be because they haven't really done any like blockbuster games. It's all just old school stuff. But hey, maybe that would appeal to a certain market. If you released a new console today and you said, we're going to get some of the biggest game publishers on board to bring their games over to it, we're going to release it at an okay price point, and we're going to have 50 of our best ever all-time selling games from 2 decades ago on this thing free of charge, maybe that's a compelling offer?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it would be.
Some follow-up to our battery discussion from last week. I wanted to tell you that I looked it up a bit, and when I said you should drain it like a full cycle periodically would be the best for it, you really don't want to actually let it get to 0%.
Oh, okay.
However, my advice is probably still mostly true in that most modern devices won't actually let you get to 0%. When your phone turns off, it still has like 1.5% on there, even though it like reports as 0, or it even just sometimes reports at 1-2% and it just turns off.
Yeah. Right. My phone used to do that all the time. So annoying.
That is a feature to help the battery.
Oh, okay.
Maintain its longevity over time.
Okay.
Because if you fully deplete a battery, that's not really good for it. It's not a good state for it to be in.
Okay.
So, but that will only really happen with modern devices. If you drain it as low as it can, it turns off, and then you leave it sit there for a couple of weeks, probably. So don't do that.
Okay.
But regular exercise for it is good. But it still doesn't actually have to be a full cycle anyway. Even if it's just, say, from 50% back to 100 to 50%, like that's still fine and would probably have all the advantages of anything else that I said last week.
Okay. I appreciate that.
And one other tidbit, is that if you want to store a device that you don't plan on using for the foreseeable future, it's best to get the charge at around 50% and then shut it down and then store it in a cool place.
Really?
Yeah.
And the reason for that one is?
Temperature differences is one of the biggest things that actually affects modern batteries.
Okay.
If they get hot, they'll lose some longevity. If they get really cold, they'll lose some longevity.
Okay.
Some people have suggested storing things in fridges, which is probably an okay idea, but definitely do not put it in the freezer, because that's going to do just as much damage as if it got really hot.
Do you know what? I remember Dad used to put his he used to put his phone in the freezer when the battery was getting bad. I mean, I'm not sure who told him to do this or whatever, but yeah, he used to do exactly that.
I mean, maybe if it's for short bursts, it could be okay, but as a permanent storage thing, do not do that.
Okay. I appreciate that.
So, yeah. Keep that in mind for looking after your new phone.
Thank you, I will. Not in the freezer and not in the oven.
It's pretty much it. Thanks for joining me, Alex.
Not a problem, David. Pleasure as always.
You can leave us a review on iTunes or follow us on Twitter at Tangential Soup. You can find me on Twitter at DavoCaddy, and Alex is not on any social media, so you can't find him.
Except for Goodreads.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Please consider supporting us on Patreon, and we will see you next week.
Ciao.
Bye.
Alright, I'm back. I'm sure that you could hear me rustling around.
Yes, plenty of rustling. Are you in bed?
I am in bed. Yeah, I tend to do my podcasts from my bedroom. It's because
Snug and warm.
Well, not so much the warmth, just more the privacy.
Yeah. So what's your roast for today? The age-old question.
Chicken roast today. It's just going to be a nice simple chicken one. So just chicken, some roast potatoes, roast carrots, steamed green beans, and a chicken gravy.
Chuck in a mandarin?
No, so this one's got a lemon up its bum.
Ah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, I'd heard from Mum that that's the way to go. So yeah, I didn't actually preheat the oven on this one. I just chucked it in. So I assume it'll be alright. Why do you preheat an oven? I'm not even sure why you do that. I guess so that you can just ensure that it's been cooked at that temperature for X amount of time, right?
Correct.
You assume that's why.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because otherwise there's a slow ramp up.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, it's not really such a big deal with a roast chicken. It can be a bit flexible in how long you cook it for, I think. But generally speaking, I think a good rule of thumb is chicken for half an hour at maybe a slightly higher temperature. Then you turn down the temperature a bit. So for fan forced, I'm doing the chicken at 170 for half an hour, and then chucking the vegetables in with it. When I say the vegetables, I actually just mean the carrots and the potatoes, and then cooking them for about an hour or so, and it should be done.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. So easy. Super easy. The hardest thing is washing the tray.
I thought you were using disposable trays.
Not anymore. No, I actually bought a permanent one because
You've switched to be more green.
Look, I have. I still have a few disposable trays which I might use here and there. Like if I want to cook two things concurrently, then I might do that. But yeah, generally speaking, try and use the permanent one.
Have you cooked much else during the week this week?
No, this hasn't really been a week of cooking for me. Just because I've been working so late all the time.
Yeah, it gets hard, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Why is work taking up my whole life, David?
I don't know.
I'm not sure either.